Welcome, everyone. Today's webinar will be exploring how to embed sustainability into an organization to create value. How can sustainability create business value? This applies to organizations of all sizes, so I hope we have folks representing different companies, different organizations. My name is Nick Buccheri. I'll be moderating today's conversation. For those of you who are not familiar with me or my work, I am a sustainability-focused marketer and communicator that has worked in responsible investment and corporate sustainability for more than 10 years. Thank you to my friends at ED4S for inviting me to this conversation today. Just one more quick reminder for everybody who's in attendance so far. The webinar is being recorded and it will be available soon on the ED4S platform. And we do encourage and welcome you to share your questions in the Zoom Q&A feature. We'll be getting to as many questions as we can during the Q&A period towards the end. Please share any and all perspectives. We're hoping to get through some interesting questions today. So joining me today are two wonderful speakers who you likely already know and love. They're bringing some deep expertise from different aspects of the sustainability industry for you today. We have Nawar Alsaadi. Nawar is the co-founder and CEO of Canada Advisors, which is an ESG fintech advisory firm. Nawar's sustainability career spans over 15 years, including roles as an ESG portfolio manager at the Canada Post Pension Plan and Chief Impact Officer at Scope 4 Capital. He also currently serves on advisory boards of several leading sustainability solution providers and has authored several books. Welcome, Nawar.
Thanks, Nick.
We are also joined by Maria Maisuradze, who is the founder of ED4S and a board member at Concordia University. Maria has worked in various roles at organizations like CDPQ, Manulife, TD Bank, and she now leads ED4S's education programming as Chief Learning Architect. Her work through ED4S has supported organizations and companies across Canada, the US, Europe, and the UK, all with the goal and intention of embedding sustainability in different business units and functions. Welcome, Maria. As our webinar title suggests, today's session is all about moving beyond sustainability as a compliance or box checking exercise and learning how to embed it in different business roles to create real business value. At this particular moment in time, with Canada's new federal leadership and the many, many interrelated systemic global challenges that we face, it's more important than ever for businesses to align their outlook and their operation with sustainability principles. Can we and how can we count on businesses to proactively adapt their strategies and their operations to effectively respond to these challenges? We recognize that we need all social and economic players to be collaborating in these efforts. And perhaps a bit more central to this audience, being sustainability leaders and practitioners, how can sustainability professionals identify practical ways to introduce value and resilience to their organizations in this moment and going forward? Or put simply, what does it really mean to embed sustainability into a business in 2025? We know the definitions have changed. We know the regulations have changed. We know the practices have changed. We know the philosophies have changed. We know history is changing around us. So what does it mean for us to embed sustainability today? So I'd like to kick this off with a hot take. Nawar, I'm going to turn this to you. Why do you think embedding sustainability for business value is particularly important right now?
Yeah, thanks, Nick. I mean, it's a pleasure to be with you and Maria. I mean, people who follow me on LinkedIn know I love this topic. I've always thought that business should embed sustainability, or sustainability should be embedded in business with a value creation kind of framework. But I do think today, and you kind of alluded to this, Nick, about the changing nature of the kind of the macro environment around sustainability and business overall, it's incredibly important for sustainability to be rooted in business concepts today. I would say over the last couple of years, there was a lot of pushback against sustainability, starting with the anti-ESG movement in the U.S. and which has, there's a complex background to this. I won't go into this, but increasingly, obviously, since the election of Donald Trump in the U.S., the rhetoric against sustainability, climate, and DI, obviously, and the social side of sustainability has been under increased pressure and attack. The challenge that this anti-ESG push and this hostile position to sustainability did not just stay in the US. We're seeing this as well. Europe is pulling back on some of the sustainability regulations. They're watering it down for what they call competitive reasons. In Canada, we saw the regulator has kind of stopped work on mandatory reporting. So we're seeing that adverse impact as well go beyond the US. Now, in terms of embedding, in terms of how companies should deal with this new environment, focusing on the business side of sustainability or doubling down on the business side of sustainability in this current environment becomes table stakes. That's the only way you could push sustainability forward, the only way you can justify where you're spending time, money, and resources to do the right thing. And unfortunately, you have to keep explaining it from a business standpoint. That doesn't mean, so that's why I think it's important. This is really a messaging issue at the end of the day. You can still do it for the right thing, and you can do it for the business side of things. But the messaging today as well should highlight the business benefits of being sustainable, both as an investor or as an operating company. So, anyways, I'll stop here.
Yeah, thank you, Noir, and I'm sure we'll get an opportunity to unpack that in a few different ways as we continue the conversation. Maria, how about you? Why is this conversation around embedding sustainability, going beyond compliance and reporting as the main motivations, and embedding it into a company's operations? Why is this particularly timely from your perspective?
Yeah, thanks, Nick, for the question. By the way, thanks for everyone on the line because I think we're here a smaller group, but the group that really wants to move conversation forward. And to that point, actually, I want to bring up a quote that I believe Nawar comes from you. Let me know if I'm wrong. But we were saying something like the first rule of sustainability is not to talk about sustainability, coming from the Fight Club, right? Is that you who said that a couple of years ago when we talked about it?
It's possible. It was actually, I had it in discussion recently as well, but I put so many quotes out there. I don't remember if I
Yeah,
originate them or they just kind of bounced back to me. And I'm like, oh, wow,
yeah.
that looks interesting because I actually coined it, but I don't recall it
I
was
think it
me or
was
not.
you.
Yeah.
So, anyways, but that quote is, I think it's even more pertinent
Yeah.
today, where terms like ESG sustainability are starting to become extremely politicized. But we still need to move forward, and a lot of companies are putting down their claims and goals, etc. And this is where, in a bit of an identity crisis that we're having in the sustainability world, we need to come back to the basics and make sure that we're aligned with the business goals and business objectives. And we're talking about value, cost, and growth opportunities. So that's on one side, and now I will talk to you about it further. But the second point of view where I feel this embedding sustainability is very important is because we are in a world where increasingly people are purpose quitting. They don't know why they do what they do. Just a lot of statistics from HR leaders show that individuals are not connected to what their company does. And that obviously reflects on their motivation, on retention, and productivity. So I do feel the sustainability, in addition to driving business results, could actually also increase retention and employee performance, really looking from a bottom-up approach. So those are the two things that I feel in today's environment, talking about sustainability from business point of view is crucial. And it also helps us to put aside kind of big claims and be a little bit more realistic of what we can actually do within the business environment and economic systems that we have today.
Love it. Those are all great points. So, in today's climate, we need to return to the basics of sustainability, focus on value creation and its role in business. We offer employees and businesses an opportunity to connect to their work to purpose, and there's a variety of benefits that have been shown to come from purpose. And then make sure that our sustainability practices are realistic if they're embedded and not just aspirational 2030, 2050 goals, which, we've seen recently how those have gone. So it's a more ground up approach is what I'm hearing, which all sounds
Yep.
really, really reasonable and interesting. So let's dive a bit deeper. Nawar, you've suggested in some of your recent articles and your deeply profound LinkedIn aphorisms that sustainability teams might actually be looking at sustainability in the wrong way. I'd like to explore this a little bit further and offer this as the foundation for this conversation around embedding. Can you explain to us the difference between typical sustainability questions and the strategic business questions that you've been writing about recently?
Yeah, let me start answering this with a quote from Lao Tzu, who's a Chinese philosopher who says, if you don't change destination, you may end up where you're going. And the reason I'm saying this is that if we as an industry don't change our destination and the way we think about sustainability, we'll always end up in the same place. So if you're always going to start your questions with what I call sustainability-centric questions when you engage with clients, and obviously I'm generalizing here. I'm obviously aware that there are certain professionals that don't do that, but on balance, when companies hire sustainability professionals to advise them, they start with questions such as, what's your sustainability policy? What are your sustainability aspirations? They try to understand what is material for you from a sustainability standpoint. They may look into the sustainability regulations that concerns you. They may ask you about metrics and tools you're using to track sustainability. And obviously, they may ask you about your overall kind of sustainability strategy. But what happened when you center the discussion around sustainability, you always end up with plans that live along the business strategy. But if you start your questions with the business itself, and that's quite tricky actually for a lot of sustainability professionals because they are not traditional kind of management consultants. They don't always start their questions with, what is the core value proposition for this business? What is the competitive advantage? How does the industry differentiate itself? What are the cost centers? What are the short and long-term kind of challenges as well as the goals and objectives? What are the growth drivers? And how do we benchmark against peers? These are purely business questions, and they are meant to be business questions because that's how you should start thinking about sustainability in a business context. You start there, and then your role as a sustainability professional is to introduce a solution that is rooted in sustainability. So you're dealing with business challenges, you're bringing sustainability solutions, but to understand what these business challenges are, you have to ask the right questions. So yeah, I put this a couple of months ago. I wrote about this on my LinkedIn. It got a lot of engagement. It seemed to have resonated with a lot of people. So I'm very glad that you kind of starting with this or kind of digging deeper into this, Nick.
I just want to jump in with a comment
Yeah.
now, because I feel starting from that question, it's so liberating in the sense that it opens up creativity of what businesses are needed, what a good business should look like, what is our purpose. And a lot of the time in our economy, a lot of business models actually need to adapt and change. Because if your business model is unsustainable, you can be optimizing and reducing the cost, but you're still not aligned to sustainability. You're just doing better the same thing that you're doing. But by definition, if, talking about tobacco company, what is the purpose of tobacco company? For example, we can have responsible sourcing and regenerative agriculture, but at the end of the day, you are a tobacco company. And so I think just starting from that question, it does open up some scary tunnels where you could go to, and some executives are obviously not ready to go that way. But I think it's critically important if we are to start realizing businesses with the sustainability, and we need to start opening those doors.
Yeah. Yeah, I see it. I see it in a very similar sense, especially from the marketing perspective, where sustainability and marketing can work together to provide a differentiator. If you're just doing the marketing without incorporating sustainability into the business practices, you are effectively just, contributing to all the greenwashing. So, yeah, I see lots of alignment between traditional business functions and sustainability that need to contribute to this holistic perspective on a sustainable business. Noir, going back to you for a moment, can you expand a little bit more on how these business-centric questions, as you put it, these sort of conventional or traditional management consultant questions that revolve around strategy, result in deeper integration of sustainability into an organization? Can you get a little bit more specific around the ways it impacts the integration itself?
Yeah, so kind of build on the business questions I just shared with you. Let's say you go through that set of business questions I shared with you. I mean, let's say, I don't know, we're talking about a retailer, for example, and they have, for example, retailers have differentiated strategies. To stay with that example, they might be on the upper end of the market with premium products. They might be on the lower end of the market, and they may be pursuing a cost leader kind of strategy as opposed to profit maximization or revenue maximization. If you've ever kind of went to business school and you see that businesses have different strategies, and some of them aim to maximize market share, some aim to kind of maximize profits and so on. So if you were, for example, so there's something that we often talk about in sustainability, that you can sell sustainable products for a premium usually. And actually the data shows that on average, clients are ready to pay a 12% premium for sustainable products, globally in some markets up to 20%. So you might be inclined to mention to someone you can sell things at a premium, but if the entity you're working with is trying to be a cost leader, that may not make sense to them. Maybe they don't want to sell product at a premium. So you come with your standard sustainability playbook, but it doesn't work. It would only work from the other direction, where you can bring a solution that could lower the cost for that particular company, where you can focus on efficiency initiatives, that you can potentially reduce energy use or resource use, or optimize your supply chain in a way that lower costs. Which what this does is you're still offering a sustainability solution that is embedded in the strategy of the business, rather than trying to force them to pursue something else that may make sense on paper from a sustainability, from a narrow sense of a pure sustainability discussion, and you miss the larger picture, and then you don't end up with buy-in, and the company will not implement what you want. So you really need to understand what the goal is. Just very briefly, if another example is a company has a challenge around growth. If you look at the data since 2018, sustainable products have grown 55% faster than non-sustainable products. So at this point, you may look at the set of products they have, the product lines they have, and you say, well, maybe we need to reposition some of these products into a sustainable offering, so we can kick our growth we can accelerate our growth. So kickstart their growth by pursuing a sustainability strategy. So again, I'm giving sustainability solutions to business problems, and you will only understand these business problems if you ask the right business question. So anyways, hopefully that puts it in a better context.
Yeah, very helpful. And so we have business growth as one key way to incorporate sustainability, or one of the benefits of incorporating sustainability, integrating sustainability. We have risk reduction and cost reduction, which I think are a little bit more common applications of sustainability.
Mm.
Can you walk us through those in a little bit more detail so that we have these sort of categories in our mind? Because what I'm
Mhm.
hearing is that applying sustainability uh, can't be done the same way across every business. And then on top of that, it can't be done the same way across the different, let's call them stages of a business's life. If it's going for growth, or it's trying to reduce costs, or it's trying to differentiate itself, or it's trying to innovate, it's trying to invest in R&D, like all these different components of a business's success require a different approach to sustainability. That's complicated, right? Even as simply and concisely as we've put it here, it's very complicated work. Can you give us some categories in our mind for the key levers for sustainability in business strategy?
So you touched on it, Nick, in your question, and but a couple of years ago, I came with this framework. Now I'm sure there are versions of this out there, but I used to have these discussions around value creation and sustainability, and they go in so many different directions. A lot of anecdotal examples. So I sat down one day and I said, well, I mean, how do we really boil this down to how sustainability creates value in a simple, kind of accessible framework? I'm not even, I'm not sure I can call it a framework. It's more, just kind of broad way to think about this, but a structured way. So the first way sustainability creates value is risk reduction. And you kind of touched on this, Nick, and that could be regulatory risk, it could be physical risk, it could be transition risk. There are many different types of risk. In a sense, it's similar to insurance, but the problem with the risk reduction is it's often hard to put a dollar value in it. I mean, how much risk you're minimizing. It could be very specific. If this regulation is violated, you pay X, so you can calculate that. But sometimes, we talk about reputational risk, to what extent you're protecting reputation. So generally, sustainability professionals struggle with selling a risk reduction strategy to their their executive team because they can't always quantify the benefit, and it just becomes very generic. But it is a lever. It's an important lever. The second lever is cost reduction, and this is really the easiest sell because everybody wants to save money. I mean, it's all about efficiency-driven initiatives on water, on energy, on material cost, streamlining operations, reducing waste. Actually, there was a very large study that was done a couple of years ago that looked at all the 10,000 decarbonization projects that have been pursued in the US over a 10-year period by hundreds of companies. And guess what? 74% of these projects are efficiency improvements, because they're just an easy sell. I mean, they are decarbonization projects, but they're also saving money because every ton of carbon is tied to money. So that's the second one. And the third one is business growth. And I kind of alluded to this a little bit. It's about how can you tap into a new customer segment? How could you potentially leads to higher prices because you have a premium sustainable products. And I want to be careful. Not every sustainable products need to be priced at a premium price point. Ultimately, sustainability should not be associated with premium pricing. But there are situations where you can charge a premium product price, but you can also tap into the growing interest. I don't have the exact number here. It's probably in the 60-70% of consumers are interested or looking into sustainable products. So there's definitely an opportunity for companies to expand into a sustainable product line. And so that becomes the third pillar, where you approach sustainability as a new business opportunity. Now, in some cases, you may create a new category. I mean, you see, for example, climate solutions. There are kind of B2B solutions that helps companies address their environmental impact, and you can build I mean, I work at Canada with 300 sustainability solution providers who basically building businesses around the notion of enabling other businesses to be more sustainable. So this is a huge business opportunity. And within these 300 solution providers we work with at Canada, some of them are mainstream companies who branched out into sustainability software. So that's a very a clear example of how you can leverage sustainability as an opportunity to grow.
Amazing. Thank you. Those are great examples.
Mm-hmm.
There's one more question I wanna go through, Nawar, before we transition into a little bit more of the practical side.
Mm-hmm.
Um, where do sustainability professionals fit into this with their unique skill set and outlook? What role does the sustainability leader, manager, coordinator, analyst play in translating between all the nuances of ESG and sustainability and the business objectives and outcomes that you've described?
So I like that you use the word translating, because I see sustainability professionals as translators. What's difficult about sustainability, it always exists in relation to something. I mean, if it in the context of a business, in the context of a specific processes or operation or a role, sustainability in itself is a meaningless word if it doesn't exist in a particular context. So the sustainability professionals, I see them as translators who understand the connectors between business and sustainability. Sustainability has impacts on business strategy, has impacts on operations, has impact on communication, has impacts on reputation. Sustainability basically touches every aspect of a business. The challenge we have is that a lot of business leaders don't recognize these connectors, don't understand these connectors, and they do need translators. They need sustainability professionals to come in and say, that's where sustainability come into play. That's how it impacts the business, and that's how the business impacts sustainability. So the sustainability professionals are not necessarily coming there to create business strategies. They are there to elucidate the different pathways and highlight how sustainability can help chart the path forward. So I do see them playing that collaborative role with business leaders to hopefully achieve the business objective that the business is aiming to achieve over the medium and longer term. But yeah, I think maybe I'll let you pursue how we turn all this into a training program, maybe with Maria.
Yeah, excellent. Thank you, Noir. I
Yeah.
appreciate it. So yeah, Maria, we sort of have established at least a little foundation for us to talk about different ways to embed sustainability into an organization. We've established what we mean when we talk about business value and the role of sustainability. I think the one natural question from here, once we've established the role of the sustainability professional, is how do we operationalize it across an organization? Sometimes sustainability teams are siloed, sometimes their influence is limited, sometimes their ability, as Nawar mentioned, to forecast the value or the outcomes of their efforts in the short term can be challenging. You, Maria, have worked with organizations in Canada, the US, and UK to help them with exactly this through training and employee engagement. I'd love to hear a little bit more about, broadly speaking, what's the role that training can play in embedding sustainability in this way? And perhaps relatedly, why training instead of other tactics that might be relevant?
Yeah, thanks, Nick. I just want to make a comment to the last point that Nawar made, actually, with translation. So, and this will tie into what I will present to you in terms of practical integration across different functions. So I would say sustainability leaders need to be translators, but they also need to be polyglots in the sense that it's not just talking business language and sustainability language and being able to translate, but it's also talking marketing language, legal language, risk language, investment language. So whatever your business functions are, you need to be able to talk to those different departments because they're the ones that are going to operationalize your sustainability strategy. So that brings me to the question you're asking me. So what is the role of training? And let me share a quick story with you. When I just started ED4S over 5 years ago now, my purpose was let's train and create awareness about sustainability, importance of sustainability. And we started in the financial sector. And we said, let's train at the large scale. We create awareness, common language across employees. We would give them this, desire to learn more, and then it's going to start getting embedded, right? And boy, I was wrong. The fact that I'm personally passionate about sustainability, I'm a finance person, doesn't mean that everybody is. I think people on the line are as well super passionate, but we cannot assume that anyone in the world, and I think we're kind of a big minority right now, will be dedicated, invested, and ready to put so much effort and focus into this. So I think as we're moving forward in the company's maturity, we really need to be very empathetic and very clear on business goals, business realities, and individual priorities. So I wanted to share very quickly a visual that maybe will provide an insight on what we want to achieve when we're going from compliance-based sustainability to embedded sustainability. And I hope Zoom will allow me to share this visual. As you can see, we don't use, okay, here you go. And this picture comes from a report published last year by IBM. It's called Checking the Box, Beyond Checking the Box, based on thousands of executives interviewed across different sectors and companies. And basically what you see here are 3 organizational models in which sustainability is embedded. So on the left, you see really compliance driven. That means you probably have 1 or 2 people, maybe, communications person or accountant that got this additional work and they need to now report on sustainability. So that's really just a minimum reporting just to comply with the regulation. I think most of the companies today are an opportunistic. Basically, they see the value, they see the client demand, and they want to do something, but often enough it's managed like a project. So you're going to have a project leader, which sometimes is a sustainability leader, and then they will have different business functions that will contribute. Could be tech department, right, that's collecting the data. Could be accounting department that's normalizing and translating into numbers. But often enough, it's a project, it's standalone, and it's in addition to everything else that's going on in the company. And then as we move, and this is probably the most popular, and this is, the opportunistic one we could see today where some companies fling-flagging between, I have all these objectives, and the next day things have changed and they're backing up. So we could see how this is potentially not optimal. Additionally, multiple research shows that when you actually embed sustainability across your organization, not as an opportunistic one-off, but really strategic embedding of sustainability, that's where you're actually realizing return on your investment. If you're doing as a compliance, it's a pure cost. Obviously you're compliant, but that money they invested hasn't generated any return, which it could. So this is very important of the embedding sustainability. I don't want to spend too much time on this, but I just wanted to show you kind of the thinking behind that leads to the framework that we developed. And maybe just for the sake of focusing on the conversation, back to the question that Nick asked me, what does training has to do with all of this? I thought training will be the solution. Today, I know very well after seeing so many companies going about training in different ways, it cannot be the only solution. The only way training will work is it's when part of a very strategic, well-coordinated deployment that's very focused and aligned with the business goals. So, training will not be the answer, but it's a crucial piece of the puzzle that you need to put in place very well and strategically to move your sustainability agenda forward and actually operationalize across business units so that you stop being kind of a project-based or compliance-based, but rather, let different departments take ownership of sustainability and embed it inside the company.
So it sounds like maybe the flip side of the coin that Nawar was describing, where the sustainability professionals have to go learn and incorporate all of these different business practices into their understanding. At the same time, if we can have all of those other business units have a shared understanding of sustainability and its value creation potential, then we start getting to a level of embedding sustainability that allows the organization to pioneer, to lead, to innovate.
Exactly.
That
Really
that's
bottom
I
up
think
and top down approach.
that's right.
Yeah.
Yeah. Interesting. And I did notice that in the visual you shared in that hierarchy, assuming those are all departments, for some reason, even in the pioneer one, the furthest to the right, the executive did not have any green in it. And for me, I always felt like the organizations that are kicking butt in sustainability are the ones where it really starts all the way at the top
Yeah.
because that person steering the ship, quote unquote, uh, has this naturally ingrained vision between the business development and strategy and the
Yeah.
sustainability goals, which I think just makes everything a lot
100%.
easier. But perhaps
That's
a
so
separate point
important, Nick, and I'm
altogether.
happy you bring it up because it's all about the message from the top. If the way it's deployed and operationalized is just we need to do this, just get it over, and we check the box, versus this is our purpose, this is our goal, this is our duty to our clients. So the cultural piece, talking about effective embedding and training, if the culture is not there, if that message from the top is not there, it's just worthless. So you might as well just invest your money elsewhere.
Right. Right. And we know that training can support cultural shifts as well. Like this is well known in the world of HR, where you're even like simpler things like cybersecurity culture. How does everybody across your organization share a common set of practices? Training is the main vehicle for that. So how can training be used elsewhere to deliver these sort of table stakes for an organization? Which I
Yeah.
think is a helpful analogy for me as I think of how training can be rolled out effectively. So let's dig a little bit deeper into this training component of embedding sustainability. When you are designing training, how do you identify which teams or roles and professionals need to know, and what do they need to know, and how do you ensure that there's a tie back to what the broader sustainability goals, but then also sustainability as value creation goals are met?
Yeah, so good question. And I think this is a good point where I could position us in a whole servicing of the organization in different stages of its maturity. So where ED4S usually comes is that the company has already done its materiality assessment. It has the sustainability strategy. It's very clear on what needs to be done. It has the goals. And now they're at the stage where they need to operationalize it. So often enough, when they come to us, they already have a clear understanding or who they want to focus on. So sometimes it's a company-wide training, and this is usually very short and sweet, 15, 20 minutes. What are global kind of or industry movements or core drivers? How does that translate for us in terms of risks and opportunities? What are we doing about it? What are strategic pillars? And that kind of just creates a common foundation. And one key factor in that piece is that we're not saving the world. This company is not saving the world. We are trying to be successful on our journey as the world is changing, and we're trying to be sustainable as a business. So that's a foundational training. So a lot of the companies do that either internally or using our services. I think the key in that is being very, very focused because that's 15 minutes, often enough 20 minutes. If it doesn't connect to what company does, it's most likely going to be forgotten. So it's very short, but it has to be very well thought and well deployed internally. Now, more specifically, as we kind of advanced and the market has advanced, right? We started a lot with this awareness training, and the idea behind ED4S was something like, wait, cybersecurity is a reputational risk, operational risk, and it's a large scale training. Let's do the same for sustainability, because sustainability is also operational and reputational risk, and it also changes very quickly. So that's where we started 5 years ago. But as the market matures, we see more and more companies are actually embedding this within the function. So now that made us think, okay, what does the training need to look to actually make a difference? And again, often enough, clients will come and say, I want to train this division. So one of the latest projects we worked was on product design for a fintech company, a global fintech company. And so we basically start by challenging the client about what does that employee or that division need to know, right? As sustainability passionates, we want to give all the information, all the science, and overwhelm people. And this is really not the way to go forward. And the approach that we use, so basically, like, imagine a small circle in the middle, and that's what they must know in order to integrate. These things need to be clear how that connects to their business. Because without that, they can't really apply sustainability within. Then you have a broader circle outside, which is, it's nice for them to know to give a bigger context to understand interconnectedness, but it's not that essential. But it's important to make this available. And then you have everything else outside. That's your rabbit holes. And it's good to give them opportunity to go in a trusted and reliable place where you would send them to learn more about deeper topics. So then we're talking about more expert, deeper training. Somebody might actually get interested and do a CFA ESG investing certificate or GARP, etc. But those are like really fringe, right? They're really on the side. The core and key message has to be extremely focused and directly tied into day-to-day of the people you're trying to influence.
Amazing. I'm wondering, Maria, can we see a concrete example? Do you want to show us some of the case studies you've prepared to just help us visualize how you go from learning about an organization and their sustainability mandate into developing curriculum and content and deployment for them?
Yeah, absolutely. And do you see my screen?
Yeah.
Okay, perfect. So I'll just go through it very quickly. This is the framework that we developed. So it always starts by, who are we training? Are we training sales reps? Are we training developers? Are you training marketers? And that leads us to understand, why would they care about this? Not because they want to save the world. They all have 40-hour jobs and they have to balance life and work, and they're not exactly looking for extra work, right? So you really need to find their why. And that's where I'm going to give you a case study example that I prepared on what this could look like. Then we're talking about what, right? The circles I just told you, what is the essential and must know? And then what are the other things that you could complement with? And then finally is the how. So is it e-learning? Is it lunch and learn? Small companies, 100%, it should be in person or in a small group. That's where the biggest impact is. You can discuss this, you can challenge each other. Most of our clients are large companies with workforce scattered around the world, so that's not possible. So e-learning is the next best thing. And then you could do it hybrid too. So you can do a e-learn with a meeting that follows up, etc. So there's ways to design programs that could be highly impactful. And so the case study I prepared, for example, commercial lending division, we do have quite a bit of our clients, they're banks. So they have people that are doing business commercial loans. So let's say I want to train this person. Imagine a persona of somebody who's Trump supporter, doesn't believe in climate change. So imagine like the worst case scenario. And that's where it's also important to be careful with the wording and the way you present your things, because we're in a polarized world where there's two versions of the world. So you need to stay away from anything that's polarizing and just maybe even not use the word sustainability. So the goal of this commercial lending representative, any commercial lending representative, is to uncover new business opportunities and originate new loans and maintain good relationships, strong relationships with commercial clients, right? Why would they care about ESG? Well, a lot of companies are getting pressured to transition, to adopt sustainable practices. There's funding available out there. There's federal funding, tax incentives. So this is a reason to pick up your phone and call one of your old clients, say, hey, I know your energy costs are a big part of your cost structure. Have you heard about this subsidy that the government is giving? And by the way, we have a loan that could complement it. So you can actually, implement it today, it would be part of your CapEx. And then after 3 years, you actually have a net positive cash flow because you're paying less in energy bills. So, we're not talking about saving the world or being sustainable. We're talking about making more business loans and financing transition in the bottom, which helps company to the bank, let's say, achieve their transition goals if they still have any. But in this positioning, we're really tying into the goal of that person. All he wants to do is make more deals, right? So this comes back to Nawar's point of like sustainability is not a standalone, it's in relation to something. So start what's to what, and then to figure out how sustainability can complement. Now, how to enable? So there's obviously it's not just training, like I mentioned, there has to be executive buy-in. So you need to make sure that the head of that division is on board and understands the value for it so they can push this message from the top about the importance of this. The upskilling, when you're designing your training, it needs to be very focused on what this person needs to know, which is connected to him making more loans, for example. And then new products, right? If you train someone about green bonds or green loans, but you don't have any green loans that your bank offers, it's absolutely useless. So you need to think about the whole cycle to make sure that your people are equipped, not only from motivational point of view to, driving their goals, career advancements, or whatever, but also, there's resources and tools there for them to be able to successful in this embedding. So this all has to be kind of thought through together to make an effective training deployment and embedding. Yeah, I don't think we have another. I have another example, but I think we're running out of time. So I could tell it if we have no questions, but I'll pass it on to you, Nick.
Yeah, we'll see how the Q&A portion goes with the audience members. I'll just remind everybody to share your questions in the Q&A functions. We're happy to take as many questions as we'll be able to cover. And while we're waiting for folks to share their questions, I'm just going to open up that Q&A panel to make sure I don't miss any. I was just going to comment, Maria, that it sounds like, training done well on the right sort of foundation of analysis of the organization and the roles and the departments actually can make the sustainability department or professional's life a lot easier because the training modules that you're designing are getting into the interests and priorities of these different departments to support them using their own incentives and interests, which I think is really interesting because then you're basically supporting the sustainability team in one of the most challenging aspects of the role, which is understanding everybody else's priorities. So it looks like we have our first question. This is coming in from Andrew McDonald. Andrew, thank you for sharing. So I'll just go ahead and read this out loud, and then Nawar, maybe you can kick us off, and then Maria, you can add any additional points you'd like to. So how do companies ensure ESG and sustainability remain at the forefront of the C-suite and organizations' minds when other challenges or events present themselves? Tariffs, inflation, Trump 2.0. Andrew, thank you. This is a fantastic question, and I think hits at the heart of this conversation that we're having in the context of these unique times. So, Nawar, do you want to share your thoughts?
Yeah, it's a great question. We could not have planted a question like this ourselves if we wanted. I think that's really a great question. So I'll go back to my earlier comments. The way we keep sustainability relevant is we keep it relevant to these problems. So we don't talk about sustainability in the context of sustainability. It's about, you mentioned, I think some of the examples were tariff or inflation. If inflation is leading to higher prices, then you think about how sustainability can potentially lower the cost base so you can keep your prices competitive. If tariff is a problem, you may think about redesigning your product for local sourcing in potentially in a sustainable way, or potentially launching a differentiated product because there is local supply for it, but you have sustainability in mind as you conceive of that alternative. So for sustainability to remain relevant in this context, it's again has to get closer to solving real business problems and addressing exactly what the executive care about and worry about. And even your messaging around sustainability. I mean, if we talk about Trump 2.0, again, you don't have to talk about sustainability from making the world a better place. When you source locally, you can say America first base if you're in the US. I mean, there are many ways you can be sustainable and call it something else, but the worst thing you can do is talk about sustainability and don't do anything. I find it always to be a lower crime to be sustainable and pretend you're not than the other way around.
I want to jump into just to share a story. Just yesterday, I had a conversation with the CFO of a mid-cap company, and she's not from sustainability. For a change, I talked to somebody who's not from sustainability field, and so she was from manufacturing industry, and I was not sure what's her stand around tariffs, sustainability policies, Trump, etc. But she's an accountant. She's a CFO. She's been leading companies. She's all about cost, operational cost reduction, etc. And I asked her, like, how do you think sustainability is still relevant in today's environment, especially in the US? So what she told me, we're manufacturers. We have huge warehouses. The energy cost is a huge part of our cost structure. There are tax incentives to still to install the solar panel. So that's what we did for our warehouses. We didn't do it because it's a good thing to do. We did it because it had very clear financial reason to do. And that's where there is a little bit of, how you say, important. So how do you motivate people? Because you actually need a CFO that is visionary to say, there's an opportunity. Let me go explore where we can save costs or create value through this. So, totally agree with Nawar's point. We do need to maybe just even forget about the word sustainability, but come back to the basics. And we're talking about opportunities. And I think even tariffs could create some sustainability outcomes in the sense that we might need to think more about circularity and sourcing local. So I think maybe in the long term, it could be
Right.
beneficial. We'll see.
Right. Thank you, Maria. We do have three more really interesting questions. So I do want to try and get through them. Nawar and Maria, I'll ask that you keep your answers as concise as possible so we can touch as many as we can. I'm going to start with the one that caught my attention here from Oana. Oana, thank you for sharing this. I've never heard this term before. Chief Anti-Sustainability Officer. So any tips for dealing with a chief anti-sustainability officer? You can find one at every level of an organization, but it's especially dangerous at the board or C-suite. Yes, absolutely. Um, yeah, they cause friction, they delay action, they question the value of sustainability without having the arguments or the facts, and sometimes from the start. How do you deal with the chief anti-sustainability officer? Maria, do you want to kick us off?
Answer in 60 seconds. I love the question, by the way,
Yes.
because I honestly think we need to talk to people like this more. And personally, my approach with this is don't go with an agenda. Go sit down with this person and understand where we're coming from. And this is something I've been exploring for a while now, trying to understand how can we bring people together by starting from things that we agree on. What do we agree on? We need to make profits. We need to reduce costs. There are certain things that now we're talked about that no matter what's your political or values, we can agree. And so starting
Right.
from there and then identifying where we actually disagree. And so like that kind of approach, I feel led with empathy, listen and openness. It's not easy because you might get facts that are not true or misconceptions, but with a
Mhm.
lot of respect and a lot of openness, listen first, understand first, empathize first, and then try to start where you agree.
I
That'll be
love it.
my
I'm
take.
gonna I'm gonna add one more to that. Bring them treats and coffee every opportunity you can. My God, the minds you can change with a nice little pastry. Anyhow, Nawar, did you want to add to that?
Uh, I would say engagement or even appeasement works if the other party is sincere in their rejection, that they're not ideologically against sustainability. There is a limit to that. I'm always an advocate of having a conversation and being respectful of the other side. But if you ultimately hit a wall and deal with somebody that is just principally against anything that is sustainable and good and holly in the world, just turn them into anti-business officers. Why don't you want us to save money? Why do you don't want us to grow faster? Why do
Mm,
you don't want us to reduce risk? Every argument has to become a business argument. That's why you need to be a translator.
yeah,
And
love
and
it.
and and then when you win that argument on business grounds, whatever they don't like about sustainability doesn't matter.
I love it. That was a fantastic way to put it. Align the sustainability objectives with the business and then ask them why they're anti-business.
Mhm.
Yeah, super interesting. From Celine, thank you, Celine. Is there also a case for experienced sustainability professionals to be trained to better speak business language so that the translators and polyglots can be more effective? And how can that be done if so? I'm going to go ahead and say yes. We need sustainability professionals to be able to communicate in the way that these different departments do. I've experienced that in many, many different situations, and we are, as an industry, getting better at it. Maria, do you want to kick us off with your take on training the translators?
Yes. So obviously there's a lot of soft skills. And I think there's a little bit of devil in the detail in the sense of like, are you a sustainability analyst? Are you a sustainability leader? Like what the context really does matter on how to go about it. But I really appreciated a share of one of the sustainability leaders from the US bank, which said that actually she doesn't run the whole sustainability at the bank, which was surprising for me to hear from American Bank. She said it's embedded across. And I'm like, how did you achieve it? She's like, when I started, I went and I sat down with every division leader and I tried to understand what are their challenges, what are their priorities, what are their goals. So she started by getting to know how the business operates and what are different agendas. Because I think when you're trying to move your sustainability agenda forward, you need to be cognizant of the internal politics, who are the influencer, how things work. So I would take a very humble approach to that, and depending on the role you're doing. If you're a little bit more junior, so you're not exactly in a leadership role, so some of the examples is I know in the bank you might be leading sustainability, the engineering side, but you don't know like what's the day-to-day of, let's say, commercial lending specialists. You need to either go for a coffee and find out, or try to do like little courses just to understand the basic, like what are the key functions, what are the key goals. And I do sometimes impact funds, for example, they hire sustainability analysts that do not know like a financial modeling skill. So I think there's it's important to train traditional roles about sustainability, but also very important that sustainable leaders do know those different roles they're trying to influence to become better translators.
Okay, amazing. We are out of time. I'm gonna try and conclude all of the different things that we talked about. I feel like this probably should have been 2.5 hours, maybe next time, because there's so much more I want to unpack. But what do we learn today? We've seen that sustainability has to be incorporated into business strategy in a more meaningful way. We've seen similarly that cross-functional departments need a better understanding of each other's objectives and needs and a better understanding of sustainability. Only through those two things can we actually have embedded sustainability across an organization. We saw the difference between opportunistic or compliance-driven organizational sustainability structures and what pioneers look like, where it actually is part of each rung on the ladder. And that visual really helped me understand. If you were to go about it with a checklist, you'd want to look at all your departments and be like, okay, is each one of these directors or managers able to lead and understand sustainability the way that I do or we do in the sustainability department? I really like that as a potential exercise to measure efficacy. We've learned that sustainability pros need to be polyglots and speak all these different languages in order to achieve these goals. And we saw that risk reduction, cost reduction, and growth are sort of benchmarks, a soft framework, as Nawar put it, for understanding the ways that sustainability can add value. And all of these things, dare I say, can be achieved with training. Training plays this fundamental role
Not
in rolling
alone,
out all of
not
this.
alone.
Not not alone, but I would argue not without either. I've tried it without. It doesn't work without.
Yeah.
So, the role of training is can be adapted in a variety of ways to achieve many of these goals. Maria, Nawar, I hope I've covered, summarized rather, as much as I can. Hopefully, it does justice to all of your perspectives. Thank you, everyone, for joining us, and thank you, Maria and Nawar, for sharing your perspectives.
Thanks, Nick. And for anyone on the call, feel free to reach out, connect via LinkedIn. If you have any further questions, happy to take this conversation private as well.
Yes, great
Take care.
idea. Thank
All
you.
right. Thank you, Nick. Thanks, everyone.